Yeah, so when I was trying to think about a way to kind of start this presentation, and Freddie, who's in the chat, will be experienced with this because I did a webinar with him before. But I wanted to try and think about three problems that SEOs kind of have when we talk about what's coming in 2026 and that kind of thing. So if we think about the problems that you probably have is you're an incredibly busy person and you lack a lot of time. Google's got a black box that they don't share a lot of information about, which means we don't necessarily know what works. And you feel underappreciated by managers, stakeholders. If you're agency side, then you may feel underappreciated by clients as well. But if you stick with me for just 30 minutes, I've got a lot of slides, but I'll rush through them as quickly as possible. And I'll explain why you're probably experiencing at least one of these problems. But I'm also going to give away the secrets as well. And I'll show you how to use, I'll show you the exact playbook to solve these problems for yourself and your wider team as well. So we'll cover the three main problems that SEOs are facing in 2025 and 2026 and beyond. I'm going to introduce some frameworks that I've been chatting about on LinkedIn that you can use to solve these problems. We'll talk about the link, which is aptly SEO testing, which is what this whole talk is based about. We'll talk then about what SEO testing is, the two types of SEO tests that can be run, and then to finish off, we'll run through how to run successful SEO tests as well. But first things first, if you don't know who I am, my name's Ryan. I'm the marketing manager at SEO Testing. I know I look young and I'm growing a terrible mustache for Movember at the minute, but I do have over a decade of experience in SEO and digital marketing. I started my career back in 2015 as an apprentice. So I've seen a lot, done a lot, feel I'm in a good place to talk to you guys about this. I'm an international conference speaker. And as we briefly mentioned at the start, a lover of all things sports, but not just football, also American football, baseball, the NBA, cricket, all that type of stuff. So why listen to me? I work for an SEO testing tool, so I'm possibly one of the best people to be talking to you about this. I've run hundreds of SEO tests across different sites and niches. I work closely with other SEOs to understand what works. And I regularly speak and write on my own blog and other blogs about different SEO testing topics. So first problem, you lack time. And to try and think of a good way to think about this, this is what I've been chatting about on LinkedIn for a while now. I'm calling this the SEO hamster wheel. And we change a lot of things on websites weekly, hoping something works. And then when something does work, we don't know exactly what moved the needle. So we keep tweaking, guessing, hoping to find that magic bullet again. And that's the hamster wheel. More work, more uncertainty, which then just leads to more work. And it's actually no help to anyone in the long run. And I am quite egotistical, so I'm going to quote myself a lot through this whole presentation because why not? So all of that, well, we could be testing, finding out what works, doubling down on that and saving a whole bunch of time. Second problem, finding what works. I'm calling this the SEO guesswork tax, which again, I've chatted about on LinkedIn and various other social network sites a little bit previously. We make changes, metrics move, whether they go up or down, but we don't necessarily know why. Every change that we don't measure, we can think of as a guesswork payment or a tax, essentially. And these payments compound into wasted time and lost focus, and that's that guesswork tax coming into play. And we can't double down on what works if we don't know what actually did work. And when we make changes without testing the impact, we lack the ability to understand what's actually working for our site. And finally, not feeling valued. I'm calling this the SEO prove it gap. We do the work, but we then struggle to show the results, and wins can start to feel anecdotal and not analytical. And when stakeholders ask us, well, what caused this? Then we can't necessarily give a perfect answer. And that's that prove it gap. It's the gap between the work we do and the results that we can show. And without proof, SEO looks like guesswork instead of a strategy. And when you can't prove your impact, it's so difficult for stakeholders to trust you enough to give you budget for other work, which leaves you feeling undervalued. Now, if I've done my job well in the past couple of minutes, just running through those problems, hopefully you are now feeling just a little bit triggered. So now I have your attention. What's the thing that's going to solve these problems for us? And I firmly believe that SEO testing is the answer for all of us. And I can hear you behind your screens. Come on, Ryan. We've been doing that the entire time. And the answer is yes, in a way, we kind of have. So to show this, I'm going to use an e-commerce example of a site that I spend way too much money on. We're going to look at Mizzen and Main site. If we think about a previous way of SEO testing, we'd check a rank tracker like Ahrefs or SEMrush, and that shows that this particular page has lost prime position for a crucial keyword. So performance polo shirts, it gets searched 1,500 times nearly in the US. Previously, they were ranking second, getting a whole bunch of traffic, and now they're ranking in that 8th organic result. And as we've seen from like James's talk with stuff with features pushing everything down, they can basically say they're getting no traffic at this point, being that far down in the organic SERPs. So they can run through some potential actions. They could improve the page speed. They could rework the wording on the PLP itself. We could improve the internal linking to the page or remove intrusive interstitials to improve the on-page metrics. And great, following some improvements to the page, we can now check our rank tracker again and see that the performance of this page for the keyword has improved again. So it's gone from position 8 and it's jumped all the way back up to position 3. But there is a big problem with doing stuff like that. And the biggest problem is quite possibly that we simply just sometimes forget to log on to Ahrefs or SEMrush and actually check the rankings. And that then feeds through into those problems that I spoke about before of not knowing what worked or not knowing when different things worked and it being hard for us to show the work that we can do and the results that we can prove. And we now have more and better data and obviously tools as well to do SEO tests in the right way. So again, we're gonna look at the new way of SEO testing again using Mizzen and Main now. So this was their site before, their jackets page. So removed top of the fold text. James went through a good example earlier of showing that you don't necessarily need as much text as you think. In this example, we're going to assume that they removed all of the text and just focused on the product. They also changed the meta title to keyword, brand, and then emotional language. They improved filters and sorting, made it easier for people to find the exact product that they want. And they optimized for on-page metrics, so improved speed, removed interstitials, and improved the imagery and things like that. And the results of that can be seen here. So clicks per day to this page increased 524%. The site clicks actually decreased, so we can be a lot more confident that the change that we made is what actually led to that impact. Impressions up 42% and the click-through rate up to 1.32% as well. And this is what an example looks like in this example. So we've got pretty stagnant click graph. We've got a nice little annotation of when we conducted this test, and we can see clicks going up and to the right, which is what we absolutely love as SEOs. So why SEO testing in the first place? And I think we can start to build a business case about testing. We can prove what works for our niche or our site. We can avoid making costly mistakes like developers pushing things live that are going to impact rankings and traffic and all that, and essentially tank the site without testing. We can prove different hypotheses and get larger project buy-in. We can show the impact of our SEO team. We can add team accountability by actually tracking the results of changes that are being made. And we can use past tests to build a backlog of what's happened on the site. And going back to these problems that I talked about before, we can also use testing to break the SEO hamster wheel. If we think of the hamster wheel as motion without learning, then SEO testing gives every change a clear purpose and a clear outcome. We can run smart, controlled experiments and not endless tweaks. We can find what works and we can then double down on that. We can also use testing to remove or stop paying the SEO guesswork tax. So if we think of that tax as being paid every time we act without evidence, then testing gives us a measurable cause and effect, and no guessing is actually required at all. Every test acts as a data point that leads to learning and not confusion. And we can replace that dreaded "it depends" language with language like "I can show" and "here's the proof" and all that good stuff. And we can also bridge the prove it gap as well. So if we think of that prove it gap as the space between effort and evidence, then testing bridges that gap with data that we can show off. We can demonstrate the exact impact of the work that we can do. And testing builds trust with clients, managers, and executives. So there's two types of SEO tests that we can run on our sites. We have time-based tests and split tests. So if we look at an example of a time-based test, again, Mizzen and Main, so they wanted to test the impact of adding in a nice little navigation bar at the top to take them to different styles of their shirts. So we measure our data before we make the change. We then make the change, and we measure that data for the same time period after. And results, depending on the tool sets that you use, will look something like this, but we'll have our data before. We'll have an annotation as to when we actually push the change live. And then we have our post change results as well. Split tests are where things get a little more interesting. And in my mind and my examples, a little bit more generally more useful, especially for e-commerce sites as well. So let's say Mizzen and Main wanted to test the impact of adding in a little accordion on their product pages, giving information about the description, details, and fabric and care as well. What we're doing with split tests is we're taking a group of pages, leaving these unchanged as our control group. We're then taking a group of pages and actually making the change, and that they're going to act as our test group. And the results will look something like this. This is how we measure split tests, SEO testing. So we'll average out the daily clicks of each group and then calculate the click difference. But essentially what we're looking for is this black line to be above the blue line to show a successful test and i.e. more clicks and all of that good stuff that we love. When it comes to running split tests, we need a few things to be true. We need a high traffic volume for all of our pages, and we need large sets of similar pages, which is why e-commerce sites especially are absolutely perfect candidates for split tests, because we have PDPs, PLPs, lots of different pages that get generally a lot of traffic that we can test on. But we can also use marketplace sites or user-generated content sites as good examples as well. If we look at some examples of past split tests that have been run, we can see this one here when a completely new page design was created and put live. We have this one that was new page titles being published, so people thinking of new and creative ways to title their pages. Adding action words to try and prompt people when they're actually in the SERPs to then click through, which again was very successful in this particular example. And then almost to go against what James was talking about, we have this particular example of adding actual more data and more text on PDPs to give more useful information. But it is also important to explain that not all tests win. And this is an example, and this is why it goes back to stopping SEO disasters when we talked about building a business case. This is an example where they tried a new page design, and the traffic completely declined once this new design was pushed live. And if this had happened across the whole site and it was just let's launch and see what happens, the results could have been absolutely catastrophic. I can hear you asking this particular question: is this not just A/B testing? And the answer to that is no, not really. When we think about split testing, what we are doing is we're taking two groups of pages rather than two groups of users. So in split testing, we're the same users, they go to the page that they go to, and we're using our pages as control and tests. Whereas we think of A/B testing, where users are going to one singular page, but we're sending half of them to version A and version B, and we're measuring those results across the same page. We just can't do that when it comes to SEO, because that then leads into cloaking and things that are very, very black hat and stuff that I decline to speak about in public anyway. We did used to be able to do A/B testing with Google Optimize, but unfortunately in September of 2023, Google made me and I think a lot of SEOs very depressed and actually sunset Google Optimize, which is why now split testing is the gold standard when it comes to testing. Unfortunately, we aren't all gifted. We aren't all blessed with the tools that PPC specialists have when it comes to being able to A/B test on the same page. But since we can't A/B test SEO, using control and test groups is our most accurate way of actually finding what changes drive results. And I feel like it's hard to have any sort of conference or summit nowadays without mentioning AI and LLMs. And I'm aware that up to this point, I haven't spoke about them, but I do actually have an answer for that as well. And we now can use these same testing methodologies and apply this to, did this change lead to more traffic from LLMs as well? And we can do this in the same way that we do with time-based tests. We'll measure our data before the test and then measure the data for the same period after the change. The only difference here is that we're measuring sessions from different LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, Copilot, all that good stuff. And the results are shown in a similar way. We have our data pre-test and post-test as well. So how do we actually run successful SEO tests? Well, there's 5 steps that we have to focus on. We have to form our hypothesis. We have to select our test pages or our test page or pages if we're running split tests. We then have to make the change, monitor that data over time, and then focus on our next steps as well once the test has been completed. So if we think about our hypothesis, it should be statement-based, including something that we're not happy with, something that we can change, and something that we can measure to determine whether we were correct or not. So if we look at a bad hypothesis, for example, so what will happen if we remove the product carousel from our polo shirt PDP? Will organic traffic and conversions increase or decrease? And if we compare that to a good example of a hypothesis that I've just pulled out. So our category page for running shoes has a below average click-through rate of 2.1% in the SERPs. By adding FAQs and structured FAQ schema markup answering common questions, we can improve our click-through rate to 3.5% or above within 6 weeks. So why is this a good hypothesis? It's because it has something that we're unhappy with, i.e. the current click-through rate of this particular page. It's got something that we can change, so adding FAQs and FAQ schema, and that's going to be the test that we do and the change that we make. And then it's got stuff that we can measure after the test as well, or our success metric, which again, in this example, is the page's click-through rate once the test is concluded. And then we have to obviously select the pages that we want to test on. And to do this, quite simply, the best way of doing this is to ask questions. We can ask performance-based questions, like which pages get the most impressions but low clicks, which pages have dropped in traffic recently, or which pages rank on page 2 or page 3 for target keywords. We can ask questions about the actual optimization opportunity. So do any pages lack internal links pointing to them? Are there some pages on the site that are missing structured data that we could add? Do similar pages perform very differently? And then we can actually ask questions related to the value of testing on these particular pages. So can I actually isolate this page from others for a test? Is this page part of a large group that I can test across? Or is this page important for conversions and leads? And does it make a good candidate? If we can improve the performance of this page, our business metrics going to improve as well. And the key is to find a combination of those prior questions to find good candidates for SEO tests. So by way of example, so has this page dropped in traffic recently? Yeah, yes, it has. Is there any thin or outdated content on the page that we could then update and refresh? Yes, there is. Can I isolate this page as part of a test? And yes, I can. And then we actually come to making changes, and I'm not going to run through how to actually make changes. That potentially could be another talk in itself. But the key thing to make out is we're all SEO professionals here. We all know how to actually make changes on a website. So I'm not going to bore you with all of that information. But there are 3 things that we need to take into account when we are making changes. We obviously then have to make the change to the test pages. We then need to note the start date of the test. If you're using tools to do this, they'll do this automatically. But if you're doing this yourself using Google Suite of tools and that kind of thing, you'll need to note down the start date. And then the final step and the most important step is to inform anyone that could have an impact on your test data. So this could be development teams that could go through and make changes on pages that you're testing on without realizing. It could even be brand or digital PR teams that are going through and running a campaign that could then impact the results of your test. anyone that has the ability to impact a test page's performance, it's worth just shouting out to them and saying, hey, look, we're running a test on this page. It's going to be concluded in 3 to 4 weeks. We'll let you know when it's completed, but hold off on any work on this particular page for now. There are different hands-on solutions when it comes to making changes. So again, if you're using something like Google Search Console or SEO testing, then it's going to be yourself or your team that will be the one actually making changes to the website. If you're using something that's a little more enterprise, like SEO Clarity or Search Pilot, then these tools will often make the changes for you, but then that is then reflected into the cost and something you'll need to take into account. Then we actually obviously have to measure our metrics of success. So we have to measure SEO metrics like clicks, click-through rate, impressions, average position, on-page metrics as well. But we also have to monitor our business metrics, or in this case, our e-commerce metrics as well. So revenue, total sales, purchases, product views, checkout starts, anything that can be classed as successful. Because an SEO test can technically be successful and increase traffic, but if it tanks conversion-based metrics, then was it really a successful test? And then once the test is concluded, there's 4 options that we've got in terms of next steps. If the test worked and led to increases in SEO and business metrics, then we can choose if we want to roll that change out site-wide. If the test failed, then we've got 2 options. We could either iterate further and have a think as a team and say, okay, well, why did this fail? Can we change the page in another way to try and create a successful test? Or if it failed completely and tanked traffic, then the best option might be to revert that back to its original state and then learn from that. Or if it's unclear, then we can just try a new variation. If results haven't moved positively or negatively in any particular way, then we can try a new variation as well and then rerun the test. But if you take one thing from this presentation, I want it to be this. I want you to use your site's data to tell stories. So start with a problem. So we realized that images on our PDPs were slow to load, and we believe this is why these pages are underperforming when we compare them to other pages on our site. We're then going to propose a solution to stakeholders, executives, higher ups, all these people that have the ability to give us budget for this sort of thing. So we propose spending $2,500 in developer time to make these images quicker to load and generally improve the on-page experience of the site. We'll then, once we have that solution figured out, we'll then run a test. So we ran a split test on this. So we fixed 500 PDPs and left an additional 500 PDPs unchanged to act as our control pages. And then the results as well. So the fixed PDPs increased in performance almost immediately, leading to $14,000 more revenue. In terms of tools that you can go ahead and use to start SEO testing, there are free tools that you can use. Obviously, Google Search Console, Google Analytics, or any other free analytics software that you might be using. But the key thing to remember is that this is going to take time. You'll need to pair this with Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, potentially even some sort of dashboard solution as well to make results look more presentable rather than just presenting stakeholders and clients with lots of raw data and trying to tell them that this is a successful test. Or you could use pay tools like SEO testing, SEO Clarity, and Search Pilot are quite possibly the 3 main SEO testing tools that people will have heard of. If you want some more additional resources, then we have our blog. We write about lots of testing and general SEO topics. We also have a blog post on actual SEO test ideas that you can go away and use and start running your own tests on. Julia Panozzo ran an SEO testing workshop with Sitebulb, which is available to watch on YouTube. I think that runs at just under an hour, and it includes a lot more information that is really hard to get into a 30-minute presentation. And Adam Gent on his Gumroad has a case study database that's $125, but it's a good investment to give you more test ideas and things that you might want to go ahead and test on your own sites as well. I'll leave this up for a quick second, not too long, because I am aware of, I think I am running a little bit early, so I'll leave this up for a couple of seconds. But if you want to download the slides and take these away, then you can. And the one little bit of promotion I'm not doing much promotion at all, but if you want an extended trial of SEO testing, then you can scan this and that'll take you to our partners page where you can get a free trial of SEO testing for 45 days rather than the standard 14 days. But yeah, the last thing for me to say is thank you. And if you want to connect with me, ask any questions, talk to me about testing or indeed any sport, then you can follow me on LinkedIn, X, Blue Sky. Those are the three main ones where I'm available. Yeah, that's it from me.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Ryan. Really, really great. I've already seen in our agency Slack some of the SEO team talking about SEO testing and sparking ideas. So, yeah, awesome talk. Really enjoyed that. We've got a couple of questions. We've got a couple of minutes before we go into a break. So, I think the first one is more a product question for you. The SEO testing tool looks great. Do we need to add anything into the site source code to use the platform, or is it just using Search Console data? Is it lightweight in terms of JavaScript? So, feel free to tell people what they need to know about actually using SEO testing.
Yeah, so if you're using our tool, it's completely no code, nothing needs to be added to your site. You just need to connect Search Console to it. And then we'll pull through all the data into Search Console, into SEO testing from there. And that's where you're starting to, in terms of our tool. If you're using something more enterprise like Search Pilot, then I think there is an element of developer time needed to add in different shortcodes and things, and things like that.
Perfect. Thank you. We've got another thing. Can we have the QR code again, please? I don't know while we do questions, Ryan, if you want to just share that, you're more than welcome to, so people can scan the code.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just, yeah, there we go. I'll leave that
We
up
may
while I
as
answer
well,
some
may
questions.
as well leave that up while we talk. And another one is, what methods are you using to split the traffic for tests?
So we just do it based on clicks to the pages. We try and then balance it out by removing outliers and things like that. So what we don't want to get into a situation of is having all pages in control and test groups with averages of like maybe 50 to 100 clicks per day, but then having one particular page that's like 4,000 clicks all the way up here, which
Yeah,
can then impact impact changes. And we've got tools within our tool set, and I think the other testing tools are similar, that they'll have internal tools to help you create balance groups and things like that. But yeah, we generally do it on clicks.
perfect. That's great. And then last one, does the split test influence UX?
Can, yeah, it's the same with anything. So any change that you make on a particular site has the ability to measure, or has the ability to impact UX stuff. The way that we've then counteracted that is by bringing in GA4 events and stuff into tests as well. So you can test different, so you can see if a change will lead to more page scrolls and things like that, which can then give you a bit of a bit more balance then into your answers. So you can say that, well, it did increase traffic, but this could potentially be because people just spent a lot longer on the site and that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
Google then saw it as more useful and all that. But yeah, it's the same with making any changes on sites. It has the ability to impact UX stuff as well.